Hey, welcome to this edition of the Handy Randy Show. Again, we're at Green High School in their beautiful new facility that they allow me to come in. I sneak in. And no, I don't sneak in. They allow me to come in, and we work with the audio-visual department, and we want to thank them very much for their cooperation and classing up the joint. And with me is a Green resident and a longtime sponsor of the Handy Randy Show, Stan Miller. Stan?
How you doing, Randy? Yeah, thanks for having me. You're right, this is a great facility.
Great, isn't it?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Your tax dollars at work.
Hey, I can't think of a better way to spend them.
Attaboy.
That's right.
Hey, we've known each other for a long time. You've been in the business for quite a long time. You're a little bit younger than me, but you went to Garfield, and soon after that, you kind of were turning wrenches for a living.
Yeah, well, actually, when I was in school, I was turning wrenches. I had a paper route when I was a junior high, and a guy that owned a gas station said, "Hey, give up that paper route, young man, and come work for me." So that's how I got into the business.
Things have changed since 1970.
Oh, thank you. Yes, they have. They changed a lot. Yeah, changed a lot.
The technology of the cars in 1970, the cars had points and condenser. They had to be tuned up every year.
Oh, yeah, every year.
You know, and people say, boy, the good old days, boy, don't build them like they used to. You know what? I think back in the winter of 1972, when you went out to get in your car on a cold winter morning to go to work.
Yeah.
You pumped it.
Yep.
And prayed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just prayed that the choke wasn't set like a bear trap and it didn't start up and flood right away, because then you're done.
Today, you jump in it, you turn the key, and it just starts. Man.
I know.
Yeah, they are better.
They are. They're 100% better, Randy.
But they're
they really
so hard
are.
to work on.
Yeah, that's one of the problems, right?
I want to think back and get in the Wayback Machine and go back to 1973 to this Ohio station, which was on the corner of Brown Street and Waterloo Road.
All right. Yeah, those were the good old days, pumping gas. My friend, I met one of my best friends now, he had the Shell station, which was right next door. And what we used to do is we used to trick him. I'd go over there in the morning and have coffee, because we'd open up at 6 o'clock. Well, I'd have my Ohio shirt on. And I'm out there helping pump gas, and people would look, and they actually would hand me a Ohio credit card at a Shell station until they woke up. And vice versa, he did the same at my place. We switched every other day. It was pretty funny.
Now, recently here in Summit County, we had a terrible rainstorm not too long ago.
Right.
And that particular area, Waterloo Road, was underwater.
Yes.
And I can remember the history of, for as long as I can remember, Holy Cross Cemetery.
Right.
There used to be a restaurant. That would always flood.
Right.
It's just a low area. And the Army engineers didn't do a real good job when they put Waterloo Road in originally to ward off water.
Right.
Now, that was all underwater. Did you ever have problems when you had your station there?
No, I was a little bit higher elevation, and what we would, Ohio would make us do once a week, we would have to go in and put a paste on a stick, and it would check for water content in your tanks. Now, you can get water content in there a couple different ways. One, natural condensation, over a period of time, put water in there, but back in the day, there used to be steel tanks. So the seals wasn't the greatest. So if you would get a lot of rain, you could get some water in there. And then, of course, Standard Oil would have to come up, pump it out.
And again, you said it was a long stick that would go all the way to the bottom of the tank with
Correct.
a paste on it.
Right.
And they pretty much knew if it was an inch or 2 inches or 3
Right.
inches, how much water was in the tank,
Correct.
how many gallons they would have to pump out.
Right.
And recently, Summit County, the only county, by the way, in the state of Ohio that goes and checks the quality of the fuel, the octane rate of the fuel, and the content of the tanks. 87 other counties don't do that. Summit County does.
Well, they need to make them all do that.
They
Randy,
absolutely
because,
should.
Yeah.
Because, as you said, maybe once a month or so, they would have to come and pump the water out.
Well, yeah, just that, but the quality of fuel. Yeah, you're right. The octane rating, very important. Lubrication qualities in a fuel, very important. But yeah, it's about time somebody's done something like that.
And again, I congratulate Summit County for doing that, and John Donofrio was the one that really started that.
Yeah.
And since he's now since retired, and we want to congratulate them for doing that. And you're right, every county should do that. We learned ours from other states because, again, there was only a couple states out there that didn't do it. Now, on that subject, quality of fuel. One other thing, on the quality of fuel can determine carbon buildup in your car.
Correct.
Also, if you check engine lights on and run your car with a check engine light on, it can carbon up the inside of the car.
Yeah, depending on what kind of sensor failure you have, most sensors, especially O2s, they will divert back to a middle value, which is running rich. You know, the car, people have check engine lights come on. Well, my car runs fine. Well, yeah, it probably is, and maybe in some circumstances might run a little bit better, feels like it's got a little bit more power, but that's because it's dumping lots of fuel.
And if carbon buildup inside of your car can be fixed somewhat, okay?
Right.
And it can cause issues. As a matter of fact, I have a little video here, a little training video that shows what's happening inside of your engine when you have this issue. Let's take a look at that, and then when we come back, we'll ask Stan what you do to prevent that, or if it's already happened to your car. Watch this.
Styles have changed dramatically over the years, and car engines have been redesigned to become more environmentally friendly. New technology and space-age materials are replacing yesterday's large carbureted engines with today's smaller, more efficient fuel-injected engines. However, carbon deposits can collect on the intake valves, fuel injectors, and in the combustion chamber, decreasing engine performance and causing loss of power. Since January 1, 1995, all gasoline brands contain additives which are designed to control intake system deposits. But if you subject your car to hard driving, have a sensitive engine, or use fuels of a lower quality, carbon deposits can build up. A clean fuel injector atomizes the fuel into the intake ports. The opening of a fuel injector is about the width of a human hair. So even small carbon deposits can create poor fuel-air mixture and cause stalling, hesitation, and even power loss. A clean combustion chamber with clean intake valves and fuel injectors creates the power and performance your car is capable of delivering. Deposits in the combustion chamber can cause engine knock, ping, run-on, or reduced performance. Deposits on intake valves can cause hesitation when accelerating.
Okay, now we got all this cobbly glue inside of the engine. Not a good thing.
Not a good thing, Randy.
But it happens. Just everyday driving, it can happen, right?
It happens a lot more than people think it does. The best thing to do, Randy, as far as maintenance and preventive maintenance, is you can do it a couple different ways. You can add some fuel injection cleaner to the fuel tank and run it that way. The best way to do it, the most efficient way to do it, is to take it to your local service facility. And
Like Stan's.
well, that has a machine, a fuel injection machine, and they call them fuel injection machines, decarbonizers. But what it does, you disable the fuel system going through the injector rails on your vehicle, and you hook this machine directly up to the injector rail. You start the motor up, and those chemicals go through. They cleans the injector rail, cleans the tops of the injector screens, and then cleans the nozzles out. And in doing that, all that chemical goes down there and decarbons the motor. It takes the carbon that's on top, the pistons get around the rings, and it breaks that up, forces out the exhaust, and also the chemicals that's in there will clean that converter up for you, your catalytic converter. There's a lot of instances people fail E-check because they have PO 420s, catalyst efficiency problems. This prevents that, prevents people from having to spend $1,000 on a converter because some of them are really expensive.
Now, you mentioned pour-in products. That would be a preventative thing.
Yes.
Once
Yes.
you've got this problem, that pour-in stuff isn't really going to.
It's really not going to do. Some of the stuff out there is not bad, but nothing as good as actually have a machine that does it.
You know, we're going to go back again. You mentioned that you got in this Ohio business in 1973.
Right.
Believe it or not, in early 70s, 72 as a matter of fact, believe it or not, they were still using whale oil in automatic transmission fluid.
Yeah.
Could you believe that?
Well, they had to kill a lot of whales to get all that whale oil.
There was a
That's
lot of cars on the road.
Yeah, but nobody knew that, including myself back in the 90s.
Yeah, killing whales for cars. You know what? I don't want you to believe me. Even though, look at this face. Come on.
No, I've looked at it for enough years. Thank
All
you.
right, don't take my word for it. Sam Morello used to be on the two-guy garage thing on TV, okay? Take his word for it. Watch this.
Back in the 70s, when sperm whale consumption to provide liquid wax esters to the lubricant industry reached 30 million pounds of whale oil esters per year in North America alone. When whaling was suddenly banned in 1972, the whole industry was forced to switch to cheap lard and other animal-based products. Unfortunately, these replacement sources proved markedly inferior to whale liquid wax esters in many demanding applications, particularly automotive. The impact came after 3 years when transmission failures jumped from less than 1 million to over 8 million per year. Almost overnight, ATFs changed from virtual fill-for-life lubricants into short-lived, deposit-prone fluids whose use led to overheating and premature failures all over the world.
So, you didn't even have to believe me, even though, come on. What was that all about?
I don't know, Randy, but yeah, but you can believe him on that one. That one is true.
They were killing whales for our automobiles up until, and it's tragic. And it had to be, now way back in the old days, that was the source of oil for oil lamps.
Correct. Right.
Whales.
Right.
And animals, and animal fat, way back. And then, of course, along came John D. Rockefeller, your buddy from Ohio, and he came up with a standardized oil for oil lamps, thus Standard Oil. And he made a few dollars.
Yeah, a few pennies. Yeah, you're right.
He did very well for himself. And then he came up with Standard Oil Company. In Ohio, it was your station, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if you cross the border to Pennsylvania or West Virginia, it was called boron, which is an additive. And in the earlier thing, they said that they they put additives in gasoline.
Right.
Mandated. It's like, I guess the better the gasoline, maybe the better the additive packages. Now, same thing goes with transmission fluid. They started with whale oil. They tried lard. That didn't work too well. Millions of transmission failures. I don't remember this because I was just getting into the repair business, and we weren't doing transmission repair back then.
Well,
you took it to a transmission shop.
Right, and they were busy back in the day. The transmission shops were very busy.
Yeah, they had to be.
Yeah.
Now, as far as transmissions are concerned, you pretty much got maintenance-free transmissions. They go for, they don't even allow you to check the fluid in new cars.
Yeah, most of the new ones don't even have dipsticks, especially some of your Beamers, your Audis. They say lifetime fluid, never have to check it, never do nothing.
Scary.
Yeah, it is very scary.
Because as you mentioned before, you have a certain amount of condensation is going to happen. It gets hot, it expands, it contracts inside. I want to be able to check. I guess you can, as a technician, you can put on a rack and there's a place you can open it up and put your finger in there.
Oh, most of them take special tools, and they're all, model specific. So a shop like ours, we have to have a bunch of different type of tools to be able to do that.
Crazy.
It is
more
crazy.
money to spend.
Yeah, more money to spend. Yeah, and
Now,
a lot of the new technology, you can check them with a scan tool. Check fluid level.
What?
Oh yeah, with a scanner.
Now, we've got away from whale oil. This is the latest, greatest thing. This is made for Dexron 6, which is for General Motors cars, a full synthetic. And this is the latest transmission fluid on the market. But in the old days, you had Type A and Type F.
Right.
And that was it. You had Ford automatic transmission fluid, and everything else.
Yep, GM, Chrysler, you're right.
Not so today. As a matter of fact, you almost have to get on your computer when a car comes in to see what kind of transmission fluid you need to put in the car.
Yeah.
Right? It's that
Exactly.
crazy.
Yep.
There's probably 30 different transmission fluids out there.
Yeah, and different viscosities. One manufacturer wants full synthetic only, and yeah, it is. It's gotten really crazy. And same way with oils too. Look how many oils are out there.
Yeah.
0-20. You ever pour a quart of 0-20 out?
It's like,
Water. You just
Water.
you go like this and it's empty.
yeah.
It's crazy.
Now, some of that has to do with the EPA and the mileage. We're
Mileage,
trying to get
right.
better mileage,
Right.
okay? And
Exactly.
I understand that, and that's probably a good thing for our grandchildren. But the warning out there is for you and the audience, is that the good old days where you went to Giant Tiger and bought a quart of 39-cent oil, or Miracle Mart. Am I dating myself? Am I 1972 in this?
Yeah.
And paid 39 cents for a quart of 1040 oil. And then when your engine got really old at about 100,000 miles, then you put 2050 in it.
Right.
And then when it was really about ready to go, you put straight 50 in it. That
I
was the
remember
system.
this. Yep, that was as the way it worked. You're right.
Today's cars, you can't do that at all. If your car calls for 5W20 oil,
Yep, you better put 5W20 in, especially all your variable cam timing motors.
What's that?
Very variable cam timing is the computer is a lot faster and smarter than we are, Randy,
What?
and it's constantly
faster and smarter than
adjusting
me?
timing and everything in your vehicle. And to do that, they have and that's done with hydraulics, and it's very critical that you have the right oil in it. And there's been a lot of failures. Ford had a lot of failures, not because of Ford's engineering problems, is because people say, well, I'm not running that thin stuff in my car. That's crazy. Well, guess what? They sit there and start putting 1030, or some guys, well, I ain't but 1040. I ran 1040 forever. Well, they're putting phasers and everything else in them.
I know of one example that the car went in for service. They put 10W30. That was their regular oil that they put in their oil changes, and the engine made hellacious noise after the new oil change. Tappets weren't working properly. So they had to drain out that perfectly good 5 quarts of oil and put in the 530 or 520, is what they should have put in the first place.
Correct.
Just for that,
Right.
good new oil, because the viscosity was wrong. The weight was wrong. 5W20 now is becoming almost a common oil.
Yeah, that's probably the most common right now.
Wow, 520. Who would have thought?
Yeah, most of your Fords are 520, and your Hondas they've went to the 020. So
it's my suggestion has always been to everyone out there is to find yourself a good shop, an honest, reliable shop, someplace that's that can work on all of your cars or trucks too. Now, you've recently started emphasizing fleet repair.
yeah, we do a lot of 1-ton stuff and down, as long as it's not real big, real tall. We only have 10-foot wide, 10-foot tall garage doors, so we can't get the big stuff in. But we do a lot of pickups, a lot of vans, E350s and down.
And that is they need that van back right away.
Oh, they need it ASAP. People are making a living with their vehicle, and a guy don't want to tie his work vehicle up for very long. So
you've really catered to those people.
Yeah,
Say,
we've
come
catered.
in and see me. We'll set something up for you.
Right.
And you can do virtually everything, bumper to bumper,
Correct.
on those 1-ton and down vehicles.
Correct.
Right. Wonderful. Now, I want to change the subject, and again, it goes along with the technology, and that is a local company, Permatex Loctite, and I've had them on the show. I've had many. They provide me training information that I try to find the correct thing to pass off to you, the audience. And one of the subjects on the Permatex stuff is, one of them is Right Stuff.
correct, which is great stuff, by the way.
It's wonderful.
It
I
is
have
good.
a 37 Buick. You've seen it. Pretty
Yep.
cool car. The pushrod cover was leaking. I couldn't find just the one gasket for the side of that. I would have had to buy a whole headset, and I didn't want to spend $80 for the one gasket. So I went down to the local parts store, bought myself some Right Stuff, cleaned it real well, wiped it off real good, put that Right Stuff on, and that leak went away. And it sets up right away, too.
Yep.
So it doesn't tie up your bay.
Yeah, a lot of manufacturers are actually using that in place of gaskets. You know, a lot of your differential gaskets and stuff, there are none anymore. It's all,
Called the Right Stuff.
well, whatever they want to call it, it's all similar, but it works well.
Also, Loctite. Now, Loctite has an identity all to itself, and that is that instead of carrying $300 worth of lock washers, or all kind of different configurations, you can have a tube of Loctite, and it's really good stuff and has a place in the marketplace.
It does. And there's different types of Loctite, and you got to be really careful what you put on, which
Yeah.
thread and where
Big
it's going.
bolts, little bolts, different stuff.
If it's going into aluminum, you know, it's very critical. You don't want to use that red stuff on that aluminum.
But it works very well. It protects the bolts. You pull a bolt out that's already rusted and hard to get out or whatever. Loctite, you know what? Another training video.
Okay.
And we're going to go to that. This is what they use. It stands, and this is what makes them so smart. Even though he said I didn't have a face that's honest.
Well,
Watch.
Whether it's a critical bolt that works its way free or a hydraulic line that loses pressure, the results can be disastrous. For a race team, it can mean the difference between a considerable payday or the time and money involved in rebuilding an expensive piece of equipment. For a mechanic, it can mean the difference between a long-term, satisfied customer or one that goes somewhere else for their next repair. For over 40 years, Loctite has been supplying products that are designed to protect against these types of failures. These products include thread lockers and thread sealants, products that are used by major manufacturers around the world during assembly and service of their vehicles. This technology is unique because it cures in the absence of air and in the presence of metal. In fact, Loctite, the inventor of this technology, is named in specifications by many automotive OEMs. Threaded fasteners are used in a wide range of applications, primarily to clamp objects together. This clamping force is generated by tension in the fastener. This tension is generated by a force known as torque, the rotary force in a mechanism, and is created by tightening the nut or bolt. When the nut is run onto the bolt and torque is applied to the nut at a certain load, the bolt begins to stretch, much like the action of a spring. The more torque applied, the more the bolt elongates, and in turn, the greater the applied clamp load. The clamping force is used to hold separate objects together and to prevent them from moving independently of one another. Friction occurs at the mating surfaces of the threads and between the head of the fastener and the parts to which it is being applied. It is this friction which allows the nut to remain under load without loosening once it has been tightened. The tightening of the nut is similar to forcing a wedge under a square object. If there was no friction, the wedge would be squeezed back out from under the block as soon as the forward force was removed. And we know that fasteners used on automobiles are placed under any number of stresses. These stresses include the movement between the two parts caused by vibration, thermal cycling, the relaxation of gaskets between mating surfaces, or any combination of these elements. The problem is magnified if the fastener is not properly torqued when first installed, or when it has been over-tightened and the threads have become stripped. Once these stresses succeed in initiating movement of the fastener, each additional stress causes further movement until the assembly is no longer held together. Examples of these failures include leaking gaskets, misaligned parts, as well as component failures. There have been many types of mechanical devices designed to prevent this loss of tension on threaded fasteners. They typically fall into two main categories: free spinning and prevailing torque types. Free spinning mechanical locking devices can be a nut or a bolt, or a washer attached to either. They include serrated tooth, toothed washer, pre-assembled washer and screw, and single thread lock nut grip screw. This form of locking device must remain under load to work effectively. Once the load is reduced, the locking action ceases to function. The amount of force required to overcome this initial loading is called break-loose torque. The prevailing torque-type mechanical locking devices function by providing an interference between a locking element and one threaded surface. The locking element can be a plastic or other non-metallic insert, or distorted thread patterns on the fasteners themselves. These locking devices jam the male and female threads to prevent backoff. Typical prevailing torque locking devices include strip insert, thread deformation, nylon plug, and fused nylon patch. The level of torque required to maintain rotation of a threaded fastener with any type of locking device is called prevailing torque, thus the name for this type of mechanical assist. Liquid thread lockers possess the advantages of both the free spinning and prevailing torque locking devices. They increase the level of both break loose and prevailing torque, with greater control over these levels. Thread lockers offer additional advantages. They prevent corrosion by sealing the threads against the entry of moisture. They also prevent leakage of automotive fluids through the threads. And because they are a liquid, one bottle fits all sizes. No need to inventory various sizes of mechanical locking devices. To complete the comparison, liquid thread lockers are less expensive to use when compared to mechanical alternatives, and are usually considered easier to apply. As proof of the effectiveness of Loctite's thread lockers, the Technical Committee of the United States Auto Club, or USAC, has verified that every starter in the Indy 500 since 1971 has been assembled with the aid of Loctite thread locking and sealing compounds. Let's look at how liquid thread lockers work. The thread locker is applied to the threads in the area of engagement. Once assembled, the liquid hardens into a thermoset plastic that fills all airspace within the assembly. Based on the thread locker selected, different break loose and prevailing torque levels can be achieved. The thermoset plastic remains in a solid form until sufficient force, or break loose torque, is applied to shear the plastic into small pieces. These small pieces of plastic also assist in maintaining prevailing torque levels by jamming in the threads. The need to use chemical sealants is becoming more important. Historically, cars were visually inspected every 6 months during routine tune-ups or other service work.
Again, it's my friend. We've been in the business way long time. He still has his shop on South Main Street in the Akron area, lives in Green. Thanks for showing up, Stan.
Well, thanks for having me, Randy. It's been a great experience here.
And we wanted to, now that you know what your tax dollars are going for, and we want to say, remember, if you like this program, fine, tell everybody. If you don't like the program, dial 1-800-555-5555.